As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
There's no crying in baseball!
I ate his liver with some fava beans. A nice cliente.
That was totally wicked!
If I can change, and you can change, everybody can change!
And welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I am your host, Josh G, and we are continuing Film Effectvember as I welcome the newest member of the Film Effect family on. Please welcome Jocelyn to the show.
Hello. I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of your show, so.
Well, I truly appreciate that. That means a lot. So,
yeah, as soon as I found out about your show, I started when I was working. I'd pop in my headphones and I started going through the list, and now I'm running out of episodes because I'm all caught up now. So, I just look forward to the next one now.
Awesome. That is awesome. I love that. Luckily, a lot of them are short and easy to get through. So I do have some long ones in there, though. So,
but I like that, though. I like that when like episodes are kind of short because, like, you don't kind of get like lost in them, and it's fun. They're like fun little quick ones, and it actually honestly makes like my workday go by really quick too. So.
Oh, nice. I have another guy who likes to listen to him for his morning run, so that works too. So,
that's the perfect time for a workout.
Yeah. All right, so you're the newest member. Why don't you tell everyone what Film Effect is all about?
So Film Effect, we do a lot of like deep dive episodes, and then every week we have an episode called the Viewer Cast, and it's me and all the rest of the guys on the podcast that just basically weekly banter talking about the latest trailers that have dropped or news and entertainment and everything like that. So if something ridiculous happens, we like to chime in our opinions and stuff like that. So but it's fun. I'm really happy to be a part of it. Ed and I have been friends for, oh my god, I feel like 20 years now, since high school. So we've always been good friends, but once he started doing this, he had me on for his Jaws episode and asked me to, be like the female voice of the show, which I was definitely excited to be a part of. So, but it's a fun show. Everybody's great. The chemistry is good with all of us, and I have a good time.
All right, sounds good. So make sure after you're done with this, go check them out. But it's time for Jocelyn and I to take a trip down to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for this whole thing to blow over, because we're getting into Shaun of the Dead.
When the dead walk the earth.
Any zombies out there?
And evil is everywhere. One man holds the future in his hands.
Here they come!
Look out!
Are you alright?
Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, thank God for that.
All right, so when did you first see this?
I first saw this in 2004. So when it came out in theaters, I had to see it. It was just something that I was just like, this is totally something up my alley. I need to see this movie. It looks great. I love Simon Pegg. Like, I needed to see it. So that was about the time. And I was fresh out of high school too. So it was, fun thing to do. So I was excited about this movie.
But yeah, I got to tell a story of how I saw this. Now, for those that maybe you haven't listened, I was recently on another podcast called the No on 15 podcast. And I told a story about watching movies that I saw on bootleg. Like, if you haven't listened, just a preview, I watched the original Hulk movie in 2003. I had that movie 2 weeks before it hit theaters, and it didn't have the sound effects in. So that was an interesting watch.
It's weird. It's a weird way to watch a movie.
Yes, it was. I didn't know that going in. I got it because they were like, we have the Hulk before it hits theaters. And I was like, okay, I'll take a shot. But the following year, this is in June, this convention goes on, I was able to find Shaun of the Dead, and they had it in like a big display case. Hot title. It hadn't hit the States yet. It came out in September here. So I watched it buying a bootleg copy. Everything was fine because it had been made and ready to go in England and everything. So it was a good copy. And then I did see it in theaters when it came out. So that's my story of how I saw Shaun of the Dead before most people in the States did anyway.
So you kind of got like what's the word? Like a rough copy of it. And then you got to see it like For
Well,
real.
no, the Shaun of the Dead was the full copy.
Oh, that one was good then.
That one was good because it had already come out in England.
I
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
So it was. I just got to be like the premiere audience that shouldn't have been having it, but back in those days, when you go to those conventions, that's what you'd find, a lot of bootleg
Nice though,
people.
but right, but now you can say like I saw it before anybody else, you know?
Yep, I did the same thing with 28 Days Later. I saw it before everybody, and because it had come out in England, it was the finished copy and everything. So,
Oh, that's a good movie too.
all right. So, for anyone that may not be familiar, why don't you tell everyone what Shaun of the Dead is about?
So, Shaun of the Dead is a guy named Shaun. He's like a 29-year-old living a pretty comfortable, mediocre life. He has two roommates, one of his roommates being his best friend named Ed. And he is pretty much the same lazy, comfortable, mediocre life as well as Shaun. They're both very immature, not really wanting to grow up and do more than they need to, the bare minimum. So, his relationship's on the rocks with his girlfriend, Liz, and as well as his stepfather is a little shaky relationship too. And then with, everything else going wrong, he basically has to deal with a zombie apocalypse. And then he has to rise to the occasion and save his girlfriend and his mom. So that's basically the gist of it.
That is the gist of it. So, when I first approached you, obviously I told you Jaws was off the table because I think that's your number one all time, and I had already done that.
It is. But but Shaun of the Dead, it's between the Jaws, Shaun of the Dead, and then I really like Jojo Rabbit too. So it was honestly a really hard decision. So maybe I'll have to come back to do Jojo Rabbit with you or something.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. But I will say, after I said no Jaws, you were quick to say Shaun of the Dead. So what is it about this movie that you love, and what keeps you coming back to it?
It's the humor. I love the humor. The Office is by far one of my favorite shows of all time, and I can say that because I watched it when it aired. I'm not one of those, jumping on the bandwagon with The Office, but it's just that dark humor, that dark, dry comedy that's like, some people just don't get. And when you watch it, it's the movie's just completely hilarious to me. Just the one-liners that he says and everything. And I watched it again last night, and I was like literally busting out laughing, even though I've seen it like probably like 20 times. But it's just a good movie. It's really, really good.
All right. So I noticed you said something earlier, and I'm just curious. You said you saw this when it came out, and you were like, you liked Simon Pegg. So you knew who Simon Pegg was already at that point?
I honestly can't remember. I don't, maybe I didn't know him that well at that point. I'm trying to remember because I've seen a lot of Simon Pegg movies. I'm a huge Simon Pegg fan with I love Run Fat Boy Run. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie or heard of it.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, that's a great movie too. I love Hot Fuzz. He's got a bunch of other ones too. So I don't know. Maybe I ate my words a little bit with that.
Well, that's why I was curious, because I think
that might have been like his first like American like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if you know him before Shaun of the Dead, you probably watched Spaced, and I don't know if you watched Spaced.
Yeah, no, I did not. So yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering, because like this is obviously the beginning of the Cornetto trilogy, which is this Hot Fuzz and then The World's End. That's the only one I haven't. That's the only one I haven't seen.
Bar crawl, basically. Yeah. Yeah. But then, then he's also in he's in the Star Wars movies. I think he's in is it no, not Book of Boba Fett. I think he's in Mandalorian. He plays like an alien in one of those shows and stuff too. So he pops up in a lot of stuff that you would have no idea that he was even in unless you really kind of researched it.
Okay. Yeah, I knew he was in the Star Wars universe. I know he was in the Star Trek when they did the reboots of that.
Star Trek. He's in a couple other things. I was like looking through it last night, and now I'm like drawing blank. So,
all right. So you told people what it was about. We don't get deep into this, as you know. You said you listened to the show, so we're going to get into the next part, and that is, if this movie were to get a sequel, with the way it ends, who knows? It could easily happen, I guess. But where do you think that would go, or where would you like to see it go? And you can put it back and bring everybody back and put it back in the early to mid 2000s.
Gotcha. I don't know. I guess because like at the end of the movie, I don't want to go too far into details, but it seems that they got a little bit of it under control and they were, utilizing some of the zombies in a way, which I think would be kind of cool to have like a sequel or reboot and kind of see like what life is like with zombies, like just living not so much normally, but like how they're, using them in everyday life and how everybody is living and just just how that works out pretty much. I think that might be fun. Kind of hard to say too much without giving too much away. So
I mean, sometimes I throw out a spoiler alert and so that we can talk about the ending to cover the sequel territory.
yeah.
I've done that a few times if you want to get into it.
But yeah, I mean, I guess just what life would be like living with the zombies and how they utilize them in everyday life, pretty much. I think that would be fun.
Okay. You saying that, I wasn't really thinking about it like that, but living with zombies, now you just make me want to see Shaun the Dead go Terminator style and the zombies rise up against the humans. It just ends up the way it was. That's the way I see it happening.
Yeah.
All right. And now let's say, I mean, it's hard to think about it, but 2 years from now, this will be 20 years old. So
yeah, that's hard.
Hollywood, we're known to remake something. So who would you like to see put in a remake of this?
So this was hard for me. This was really, really hard for me, especially because they're like English actors and, you try to think of like, and I'm a different generation than, my generation is Shaun of the Dead. So it's like trying to think of like new actors to put in as it and stuff. But and the funny part is that, in the movie, they actually run into their doppelgangers in the movie. So it's kind of cool because I always said that if, I'm a huge Martin Freeman fan. Like he's one of my top favorite actors of all time. So the fact that like he shows up as, Simon Pegg's role in the movie, I just thought that was like very clever and hilarious. So, but I don't know, like nowadays I would say for Shaun, probably like Jack Quaid, and he's from The Boys. If a lot of people, are unfamiliar with him, and Chris O'Dowd too. He's from the It Crowd. Well, people probably know him from like Bridesmaids. A lot of people don't know the It Crowd. As far as Ed, that was a really hard one, but my husband actually came up with John Bradley from Game of Thrones, Samuel Tarly. I don't know. Are you not a Game of Thrones?
I've never watched it. It's one of those I've never watched an episode. So.
Well, maybe somebody will know who I'm talking
about. Oh yeah, trust me, I'm in the minority on not seeing Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
you're nailing it with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a more serious role that he played, obviously, as Game of Thrones, but like he was the only one that I could think of that looked a lot like Nick Frost, So that was the one I thought of.
Well, just so we got this put out there. If you look at Nick Frost now, me and him look just alike. I'm just saying, I can play Nick Frost now.
You could totally pull off Ed. You could totally do it. And then like as far as like Liz, his girlfriend, I was thinking Maya Hawke. I could totally see her in this role. And it was funny because I was watching last night and like Liz went on this one like little rampage where she was talking like really, really fast and like animated. And it totally gave off like Maya Hawke vibes. So, and then I have like his friend David, Andrew Garfield, I think would be a good match for that. And then Samara Weaving, I think that's how you say it, for Diane. So I know my cousin said Margot Robbie, but I was just like, I don't know. I feel like Margot Robbie has like a roughness to her, like a rough edge to her. And I feel like Samara Weaving, was, I don't know. I really enjoyed her in Ready or Not. So I think she could do a role like that. So, and I mean, Bill Nighy, how do you even like recast him?
No. Yeah.
Like that's tough. I mean, I thought of like Alan Rickman if he was still alive, that would be good. And then like Colin Firth, I thought of too. But yeah, I had fun with this, like trying to figure out. I was like sitting there for like an hour, like trying to figure out like all these, actors and actresses. And then for Barbara, his mom, I thought of like Diane Weist. Is that how you say it? Weist?
I never know if it's Weist or Weist.
I know. And I looked it up online because I was like, how do you pronounce this? Because I don't want to look like an idiot on the podcast, like saying it the wrong way. But I thought that she would be great. I loved her in Edward Scissorhands. So
oh, absolutely.
She's just a good mom, you know. She would pull off that caring but terrified kind of, you know, mom vibe.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure she's the mom in Lost Boys. If I'm not mistaken.
She is. And I have to say, I've seen Lost Boys like maybe once.
Oh,
but my cousin is like a huge Lost Boys fan. She like met the actors in it and stuff too. And she actually was like, oh, that's the mom from Lost Boys. And I'm like, is it?
Well, I can tell you this: you sold me as soon as you said Samara Weaving. Because as soon as I hear her name's attached, I'm sold on anything.
She's great. Yeah, I went into Ready or Not with her, and I was just like, I was not expecting that movie to be as great as it was, and she totally killed that role. Like, no pun intended. So
yeah, really. All right, so here's where we're gonna go next. That is the final pitch. Sell this to someone who either hasn't seen it or maybe needs to revisit it another time because they haven't watched it in a while.
If you like dark comedies, dark humor, dry humor, if The Office is your thing, if you like Simon Pegg, you know, a lot of his other movies, a lot of people haven't really heard of his, you know, not popular movies, but you know, it's just a great movie. It's funny. It's absolutely hilarious. You will literally laugh out loud watching the movie. Surprisingly, I'm not a big zombie movie person, like at all. And for this to be one of my favorite movies, it kind of like shocks me. But I think it's all in all, it's the humor that really keeps drawing me back to this movie. And I really think that it would, you know, be funny to a lot of people, even if they're not even really into like horror or, you know, zombies or gore and stuff like that. There is some, but it's just a fun movie. It's really fun. It's hilarious almost 20 years later, and it's something I keep going back to. So you should watch it. Go watch it. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it tonight.
And I think the only thing I'll add, if you like Edgar Wright, say like Baby Driver and his use of music in that, see where he got started in Shaun of the Dead, because he does put the music to great use in a lot of the scenes in this as well. So I would just say check it out for that.
It does have a really awesome soundtrack too. So yeah, I was when I was watching it last night, you know, Queen Don't Stop Me Now came on, and my kids just started jumping up and down dancing. It's like one of their favorite songs of all time. My daughter's obsessed with Queen, so yeah, that's a plus too. Yeah. Good sound, good music.
All right, let's go and wrap it up. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, where they can go find the podcast, all that stuff.
So you can find me. I'm on Instagram at Jocelyn Rocks, ROX. And then you can find us at the Film Effect Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. It's at the Film Effect Podcast. And then on Twitter, it's at Film Effect Podcast. And then you can listen to us weekly and whenever we drop, you know, deep dives on the podcast on all major podcast platforms.
All right. And as always, you can find the show. Easiest thing to do, go to linktr.ee/ynfmoviepod. Podcast platform, social media, the YouTube channel, my letterbox, so you can see what I'm watching that's not being covered on the show. And next week, Film Effectvember continues as Corey will be joining the show and telling us all about why RoboCop should be your next favorite movie. Till then, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you next time.